When you think of Alcatraz, what comes to mind? Cold cells, iron bars, lonely nights, the chilling winds of San Francisco Bay. But there's another part of life on the rock that most people never imagine, something surprisingly delicious. Yes, I'm talking about the food. Believe it or not, Alcatraz Prison, one of the most notorious maximum security prisons in American history, actually served meals that some considered better than what free men had during the Great Depression and even after. So how did hardened criminals end up dining on hearty roasts, baked goods, and fresh vegetables? Let's take a seat in the Alcatraz dining hall and find out. Alcatraz officially became a federal prison in 1934. Its purpose was simple: to hold the worst of the worst, dangerous gangsters, escape artists, mob bosses, and repeat offenders from other prisons. Names like Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz, walked these halls. You'd think a place designed for punishment would keep its prisoners on the brink of hunger, serving nothing but watery soup and stale bread. But Alcatraz took a very different approach. The prison had a saying: good food is good security. The logic was simple. If men were fed well, they'd have less reason to riot. If meals were filling, balanced, and tasty, then inmates might be less likely to cause trouble in the dining hall, the most dangerous place in any prison. And so Alcatraz earned an unusual reputation. The Rock was strict, harsh, and unforgiving. But when it came to food, it was almost generous. Picture this: a large, echoing room filled with long metal tables. The smell of fresh bread lingers in the air. Guards keep watch from high catwalks as inmates shuffle in line, trays in hand. Meals were served cafeteria style, and here's the key: every prisoner could take as much food as they wanted. Yes, seconds and even thirds were allowed. Of course, there was one rule: you had to eat everything you took. Waste was forbidden. This simple policy reduced tension. No one went hungry, and fights over food were rare. Inmates who came from poverty or who remembered the breadlines of the Great Depression couldn't believe their luck. So what exactly was on the menu? Every day at 6:30 in the morning, a whistle blew and the men lined up for breakfast. Breakfast was considered the most important meal of the day at Alcatraz. After all, a fed man was easier to manage. The menu often included hot cereal like oatmeal or cream of wheat, sometimes with milk, along with 2 eggs cooked in different styles, toast or biscuits with butter or jam, and coffee, strong and steaming. On some mornings there was fruit like apples or prunes. And on special days, the men might even get pancakes with syrup or French toast. For prisoners who came from lives of hardship, this was almost like eating in a diner. One former inmate later recalled, "Breakfast at Alcatraz was better than any I had before prison. We looked forward to it." Lunch and dinner were just as impressive. A typical meal might include roast beef, pork chops, or meatloaf with gravy. On the side there were potatoes, vegetables like carrots or peas, and fresh bread baked right in the prison kitchen. Inmates also enjoyed hearty soups and stews: bean soup, navy pea soup, or vegetable chowder. On Fridays, in true Catholic tradition, fish was often served instead of meat. And here's the surprising part: dessert. Yes, even in maximum security prison, men got pies, cakes, cookies, and puddings. Apple pie was a favorite. One inmate once joked that the food at Alcatraz was so good, the only problem was leaving it behind when your sentence ended. Of course, this didn't happen by magic. Behind the kitchen doors, inmate workers and staff prepared 3 meals a day for hundreds of men. Cooking in a prison was considered a privileged job. It meant access to the kitchen, better working conditions, and sometimes a little taste testing on the side. Alcatraz even had its own bakery. Fresh bread was made daily. Imagine the smell of loaves coming out of the oven, while outside, the cold Pacific wind whipped across the island. For inmates who came from poor backgrounds, where bread was scarce and meat was rare, this must have felt unreal. Even Al Capone, America's most notorious gangster, got in line for meatloaf and mashed potatoes like everyone else. Capone, known for being picky, once told a guard that Alcatraz food was not bad at all. Another inmate, George "Machine Gun" Kelly, reportedly looked forward to mealtimes more than anything else during his long days of confinement. The Birdman of Alcatraz, Robert Stroud, spent most of his years in solitary. But when he did eat with the general population, he too tasted the surprising quality of the meals. Food was the one place where every prisoner, rich gangster, poor drifter, skilled criminal, was treated the same. Holidays were special occasions. On Thanksgiving, inmates sat down to turkey with stuffing, cranberries, sweet potatoes, and pumpkin pie. On Christmas, the prison served ham, mashed potatoes, vegetables, bread, and fruitcake. For men locked away from their families, these meals were bittersweet. Some inmates said holiday dinners were the only times they felt human again. So why did the government invest in feeding dangerous criminals so well? The answer was discipline. The dining hall was the only place where the entire prison population gathered. A fight here could turn deadly. By making sure the food was good, plentiful, and fair, the prison reduced the chance of violence. Warden James Johnston famously said, "We will not punish men with food. If they behave, they will eat well. If they don't behave, they won't eat at all." Food became a tool for control, but also for peace. When Alcatraz closed in 1963, many former inmates later admitted one of the things they missed most was the food. Compared to other prisons of the time, and even compared to life on the outside during the Depression and war years, Alcatraz dining was almost luxurious. It was a strange paradox. The Rock was one of the toughest prisons in America, isolated, freezing, feared. And yet, inside those grim walls, the meals were a rare comfort, a daily reminder that even the most hardened criminals were still human. So next time you think about Alcatraz, don't just picture escape attempts or steel bars against the foggy San Francisco sky. Picture instead the smell of fresh bread, the sound of clattering trays, the sight of men like Al Capone biting into apple pie. The Rock was unforgiving, but at mealtime in the prison dining hall, life was just a little softer, served hot, fresh, and surprisingly delicious.